Hello, I'm Cindy Ehrenberg-Seltzer, President and CEO of the Children's Services Council of Broward County. Welcome to Future First, Focus on Broward's Children. Today we're diving into a topic that affects nearly every family in our community, internet safety, and the impact of the digital world on our children's well-being. Our children are growing up in a constantly connected world, from schoolwork and social media to gaming and entertainment. The internet is part of their daily lives. While it creates opportunities to learn and connect, it also presents real challenges like cyberbullying, online exploitation, and the effects of screen time on mental health. For many parents and caregivers, myself included, keeping up with technology can feel overwhelming, but you're not alone. At the Children's Services Council of Broward County, we invest in programs and resources that support families and help children grow up safe, healthy, and successful. Funded by a small portion of local property taxes, our work ensures that families have access to the tools they need to navigate challenges like today's digital landscape. This conversation is about awareness, prevention, and empowerment, giving families practical ways to protect children and support their well-being, both online and offline. Joining me today are experts who bring valuable insight and real-world experience to this discussion. Together, we'll explore how to recognize warning signs, set healthy boundaries, and create safer digital environments for our children. Let's begin by meeting our panelists. Welcome to Serenity Amerson, Miss Sunshine State 2026. Brittany Poitier-Downing, Education and Prevention Manager at Women in Distress. Anne Sylvie Jean-Louis, Graduate Student Director at NSU. Greg Schiller, CEO of Child Rescue Coalition. Welcome to all of you. I know this is going to be a fantastic conversation. Greg, I want to start with you. As a former prosecutor and now someone who runs a nonprofit to help protect children, can you talk a little bit about this issue and what's being done from a law enforcement and nonprofit standpoint?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me and for CSC for hosting this really great panel. So I was a prosecutor for 21 years, and for 15, I put 250 online predators in prison. These individuals seek nothing but our children from the worst possible perspective. Wherever our children are, they will be. They exploit our children by sharing inappropriate and illegal material of them, known as child sexual abuse material. But they also find our children wherever those children are, in gaming systems, in chat rooms, in online forums, where our kids are because they want to enjoy themselves, not knowing and not having the right protections from trusted adults to know when evil is coming their way. So your viewers will be happy to know that the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force of South Florida is probably one of the most robust task forces in the country, if not the world, fighting every day to protect our children. And the prosecutors here in South Florida, from Miami all the way up to Fort Pierce and beyond, Palm Beach and Broward in between, work exceptionally hard every single day to not only put the predators behind bars, but represent the victim's interests in court, taking a very victim-centered approach throughout all of these cases. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is a war that we're fighting right now, online against predators, and our children are caught in the middle of this. So we need to do more to protect them.
Absolutely. And I know at Women, you have experience both from trying to make women and children aware of the danger as well as some personal experience with this. Can you talk a little about that?
Yes, so again, thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
My name is Brittany Poitier-Downing, and I'm the Manager of Education and Prevention at Women in Distress. And we know what domestic violence is. We know what abuse is, right? It's all about power and control. So we talk a lot about threats. We talk about coercion and so many other aspects, right? But now, with the increase of digital technology, we are seeing an increase in online abuse. We've seen everywhere from individuals getting threats stating that they're going to expose images that are not actually images of them, but AI created. Sorry.
No worries.
And it's a really important fight that we are fighting at Women in Distress. As a mother of children who have actually experienced online abuse, my son, at the time he was 11 years old, and of course he played roadblocks like every other child, right? And during that time, we didn't know that he was actually being groomed by an individual. And it took myself and also my family to kind of do some personal investigation. And we were able to assist him in that incident. And then also being a mother of a prominent figure in the community, my daughter, who is the 2026 Sunshine State of Florida, she has experienced a lot of abuse online. So going through the proper channels of making sure that she's safe, she's receiving the support needed, those are things that really encouraged me to want to provide that education and that support to the community.
Before we turn to Brittany, I wonder, so many young people, as you pointed out, are involved in Roblox. And I know when my daughter was playing, she was in another room. I didn't know who she was communicating with. How did you figure out that your son was being groomed?
So one thing that abusers will do, they will try to find what you like, right? They try to find your interests. How roadblocks, you're able to go into rooms that kind of spike the interests of the child. So for instance, outside of Women in Distress, I'm also a professional race car driver. And my son, he loves drag racing, just like his mom. He loves sports. So there was a room that was created for individuals that like drag racing. So through that is how the abuser was able to identify what were some of the things that he liked. So at first the abuser, started to befriend him, said that he was a child, going to a certain school. And then he started asking him, well, what grade are you in? And my son, thinking that he has a friend, he's like, oh, well, I'm in the 5th grade. And then he used that to kind of build that relationship with my son and kind of gain that access to him. It wasn't until, as parents, this is one thing I always tell parents, always check on what your children is doing. I know right now life is busy. We have a lot of parents that are working 8 hours, sometimes 2 jobs, and we often don't check in with our children. But one thing that I always try to do is check in, what are you doing? Look on the phone every now and then. So I end up checking online to see the conversations and then the chats.
So you actually
Yes.
got into his account and looked at the chats.
On Discord.
'Cause
On Discord.
He's
because
in the Discord.
Yes, because what happens is they will befriend you on these video games, and then they will encourage you to create, a profile on Discord so that you guys can continue the conversation.
And that's where you made sure
And
you
that-
had access
yes,
to that.
yes.
Because I think that's a really, really important tip for parents. That line between giving your child some privacy and also stalking them.
Right.
My daughter's a freshman in college. I have her on Life 360. I watch where she's going. I don't tell her I'm watching, but I got to make sure, okay, these seem like
That's
safe
right.
places, etc. So the same thing online. You've
Right.
got to have an eye out for that.
Right.
Okay, as the daughter and an advocate, and tell us about your experience and what tips you have for other young people and parents.
Okay, first off, I want to start off by saying thank you. My name is Serenity Amerson. I am Miss Sunshine State 2026. Number one, I would say being a public figure that's on Instagram with a public account, it's a lot, especially being the first African American. I receive a lot of cruel requests in my inbox all the time. At first, it leads to depression. It leads to all type of mental health, anxiety. You feel like you're being watched in public and things like that because you're so recognized. And Broward is very small, so everyone knows everyone. So I'll go places and, oh, I seen you before. Okay. Started off with little things like that. Then someone ended up just emailing me a picture of my house one time, and I was like, whoa, okay. So I ran and told my mom about it, and we had to go to the authorities, unfortunately. But I would say navigating, being on social media, watch where you post. Like, if you're somewhere, you're out at a coffee shop, post when you leave, because you never know who's watching you. And always be like observant when it comes to your pictures and seeing what's behind you, because you can give little cookie trails, I like to call them, as to where your location is. So you can take a picture behind a house and someone's like, okay, I see a Pompano Beach garbage can or a Deerfield Beach garbage can, I know where she lives. So you have to be very mindful about the things you're doing. And if you are on social media and things like this are happening, I would say just try your best to like turn the comments off, and just remember that these people sometimes are sitting behind a screen wishing they had what you had, so they like to be mean sometimes. But I would say just don't let it get to you, especially like my mother said, she always keeps her eyes on us. It was to the point where I was sneaky and created a second account. People started finding that one and sending her the information. So she's like, Serenity, I was like, oh, okay, all right. But yeah, just remember, your parents aren't saying things to annoy you and stop you from having your fun. They just try to protect you.
They want you to be safe.
Yes.
Yes. So very important.
Yes.
And Sylvie, you're working with college students primarily, right?
So within the organization, with sociodrama, a lot of our members are college students, yes. But actually the people that attend our programs and get to see our sociodrama workshops are of a wide range of ages. So we've done some related to specifically cyber stalking, cyberbullying, and child internet safety. And then those will be a combination of kids from, we had a student in the audience that was, I believe, 7, raising their hands, asking and pointing out the warning signs, as well as their parents there, law enforcement present, and a lot of different nonprofits that are also kind of related to that topic. We've also gone to different facilities working with people dealing with substance abuse, domestic violence, intimate partner violence. So it really does range, and at each of our events there's a combination of younger adults, adolescents, and their parents, which is great because a lot of times, you know, we can equip parents with the tools to help their children, but if we're not having these conversations with the children so that they can figure out, you know, being safe or listening to my parent or doing these different things to be safe online, not just because that's the way things are, but because this is what I should do to keep myself and my family safe, really helping them to understand why we do these things can help them to just kind of have those self-motivating factors to continue doing that and make those smart choices. When, hey, somebody's reaching out to me and, you know, this was my friend online, all of a sudden they're like, oh, you know, we should go meet for coffee. Oh, we should go hang out. We should do this. We should do that. Oh, you should send me some pictures, to have had this conversation beforehand to know, oh, you know, that doesn't sound right. Something is feeling wrong. Something is sitting wrong with me. And, you know, children need to have that level of self-esteem to be able to recognize when something like that happens, when their intuition is telling them something feels wrong, to trust that instinct and then go to a trusted adult so that they can receive that help.
That's the really important thing, right?
Yes.
It's about having that conversation. I've spoken to tens of thousands of parents over the last 15 years, and the number one thing that I hear from all of them is, I don't know how to talk to my child about this subject because I didn't grow up with it, right? We all grew up with a car. We know how to drive because our parents taught us how to drive, and we can teach our children how to drive. But as parents, we don't know what it's like to be a teenager with Snapchat and Roblox and Instagram and even an iPhone, right? These are things that we are not familiar with. So psychologically, for adults, when we don't know about something, we get scared of it. When we get scared of it, we back away from it.
Yeah.
So there really are a few really good things parents can do to try to forewarn and keep these dangers from happening to their kids. You know, as a parent, you're the one giving that device to your child, right? You decide, how many social media apps is my child going to have? You control, if you want, what apps they can physically download, right? Because all the phones have that security set up, but even physical things. There are so many parents that don't even think, you know, when my child goes to sleep at night, that video game system, that phone, that computer, that tablet, it's in their bedroom. Well, let's have a charging station in a public area of the house, in the parent's bedroom. We can do things to minimize the negative activity. I will tell you that most of the cases I prosecuted, that original communication happened somewhere between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning, when mom and dad are asleep, when the trusted adult in the house is asleep, and there is that communication happening. It's not always that way, but if we can minimize the largest point when our children come into contact with bad behavior, we can do a lot to protect them. But we also have to give them a way to protect themselves.
Right.
Because we're not always there. So what I implore upon everybody is, we all know how to dial 911 if an emergency happens, but what happens if someone sextorts you online? What happens if someone entices you online? There's a website you can go to, and it's put out by the National Center of Child Exploitation. It is cybertipline.org. Cybertipline.org. It is a very easy website to navigate. You can even report things anonymously. But what you're doing is you're reporting to the National Center in Washington, D.C. when exploitation happens to you. And that allows law enforcement to then start looking into the offender and seeing who else they're offending against.
Wow.
Online offenders don't have one victim. They have dozens or hundreds. And so by empowering our children on how to report these things, we can hopefully stave off a lot of the bad acting that's happening towards other children.
Such great tips.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your point about not knowing how to have the conversation or even just being afraid of it, also, especially teenagers, can be very scary to their parents. You know, let's be real. Sometimes they'll get angry at you at having these conversations. So you do something really interesting, Aunt Sylvia, with the acting out the scenarios. Have you found, I imagine that would be helpful to parents and even young people as to how to have the conversation. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. It's really been very just kind of enriching to kind of see us do these programs at these different events with these different groups of people, because regardless of the age ranges, the reactions are almost always the same, where you start with the first scene where we're using the sociodrama technique to kind of display a scene. So for example, we had one called Behind the Mask, where actually in one instance I played as somebody that was playing online. I had a mask. I was a very famous stringer called Wildfinger, which is already a crazy name. But you know, the first scene starts and the kid's just getting online and they're playing with their friend and they're playing Fortnite, and it's like, oh, let's go do this, let's go do that. But you know, we only have 2 people for a 3-person room, let's open the room. And now this person comes online and they're like, hey, it's me, I'm this really big streamer. And they're like, wow, I'm such a fan, you know. So you already have that dynamic kind of in place where they're like, this is someone that I look up to, this is someone that I want to connect with, you want to do these things. And then as the scene progresses, just in that first scene, it ends with the other friend hopping offline and myself as the streamer saying, hey, you know, I see a lot of potential in you. You're so good at this game. You know, you should connect with me here. I just sent you a friend request. I see a really good future for you. You know, you should connect with me. Let's be friends. And I can really see your future being bright, you know. So it starts like that. And then when, you know, parents and children can hear something like be safe online, but then for the people in the audience to really get to see that play out, we then ask the audience, you know, hey, is there anything that you see, any warning signs? And then you'll have the parents like, yeah, well, why is my kid connecting with them online? Like, why are we trying to go somewhere else? Some of the kids are like, oh, you know, if my favorite streamer reached out to me, then I would want to, you know, I would want to connect with them. And now the parents can see that and have that conversation. But even on the flip side, a lot of times with these issues, sometimes people think that 11 and younger, 7, different things like that is too young to have these conversations. But we have people in the audiences around that age that will be raising their hands like, no, like you shouldn't be connecting with like the stranger danger. Like, I don't know who this person is. My friend isn't there. And getting to see them hear from their peers and then explain that to their parents, it really just helps to put things into perspective. So people can understand that, you know, the boogeyman isn't just under the bed. This is a serious thing that's happening that you need to be seriously aware of so that we can avoid it.
Wow. Brittany, at Women in Distress, you're also trying to make people sensitized to this issue and have those conversations. How's that going?
I love Women in Distress. My department and specifically focus on education and prevention. So I have a team, an amazing team. We have a teen dating violence specialist. She is absolutely amazing. We have a the lead specialist, and she does an amazing job training our law enforcement officers as well as our first responders. And then we have an education specialist. She's actually a retired teacher. I love the way she brings back her classroom experience into some of the education that we have. And then we also have a training specialist and a TNTA specialist who is actually, she works with our partner, the Florida Domestic Violence Collaborative, which oversee all 41 of the licensed shelters here in the state of Florida. But we have some programs that we do in elementary schools, middle schools, and high school. So in high school, we have the BOLD, program, which actually it's about I believe, like 6 days of training and educating youth on the importance of picking the right friends, picking the right relationships, identifying what abuse looks like, talking about online dating violence, right? Talking about coercion, as well as, educating them on what to do if they're faced in these certain situations. Then we have our Imagine programs that are in the middle schools. It gives the same curriculum, but on the scale of them, that age, understanding and identifying what they're talking about. And then we have our peer-to-peer program, which is actually students who take what they've learned in our Bold and our Imagine, and they educate other students at the school. So we talk a lot about these new trends, right, on online dating and online abuse, and we talk about, what to identify if an individual is, again, using certain tactics like, hey, I know you from ... because that's something that they do use. They try to fish around with, didn't I see you at, I'll just throw a name out. Did I see you at Nova at an event? And then the person will say, oh, well, no, I wasn't at Nova, but you might have seen me at FAMU, right? Yeah. So these are ways that abusers try to get the person to identify information, and then once they get that information, they use that against you. And so those are things that we try to educate at Women in Distress. And then it's funny that you talk about parents. So we have our Dating Violence 101 training, our Teen Dating Violence 101 training that we love to do with parents to educate them on what teen dating violence look like and what are some of the signs to look for. You would be amazed at how many parents tell us, oh, well, I don't think that my child is in an abusive relationship, or I don't think my child would ever engage in online dating violence or online abuse. When we tell them that teen dating violence is up 68% here in Broward County, and then we educate them on what dating violence look like or what abuse look like. It's not just physical, right? No. There's so many other aspects. There's mental, there's financial, there's digital. And when we educate them, parents are afraid. And then we have situations where I get phone calls in my office where parents will say, after your training, I went and talked to my child, and I cannot believe my child was engaged in an online abusive relationship. We have, and I would recommend everyone to take one of the trainings that we have. It's a very amazing training. It's called In Their Shoes, where we take them in the life of a person experiencing abuse. And there's one story in there, and they're all true stories. They were all written by the actual parents. But there's one story that talks about how an abuser forced one of the survivors, and we don't call them victims at Women in Distress, we call them survivors, to put a video camera in their room to watch them throughout the day, and how he was breaking into her room and some of the things that he was, it's scary. So it's important that we get that information out there, and that's one of the things that Women in Distress, we pride ourselves on, trying to really bridge that gap and provide that education to parents as well as individuals in the community.
Wow, amazing. Serenity, I saw you nodding and really agreeing with Mom on this. It's a lot that
I want to piggyback off of. Number one, when she said about, using details to get closer. I remember my years in public schools. It got to a point where my mom had to take me out of public schools due to a lot of bullying and things like that from online. But I remember while I was in public schools, I was the quiet child. I was depressed. I had anxiety, didn't want to talk to anyone. All I had was online. All I had was my phone. I started meeting people online, and it's crazy because thank God, that they were people that were actually real, but it's crazy to know that there's people out there who actually pretend to be people's friends just to get information out of them, just to harm them. So one thing that I feel like we should do is try to implement that to the youth, because there could be a lot of people going through depression not having friends in real life, so they go online looking for friends, and it ends up being a worse case. And another thing with the whole dating thing, it's like normalized now to date online, to find a significant other online. You don't know who you're dating. a person could be paying someone to make a video for them to send it to that person as if it's them. It's a whole, people do anything for money. I'm telling you, it's crazy.
Or deep face.
Deep fake.
Yes,
that's what
that
we talking
AI
about.
things, just like, making the fake pictures. Oh, well, if you don't send me this picture, then I'm going to post this of you. Like, it's really, really bad. And I don't think parents really understand how bad it is, because as children, sometimes we're scared to tell our parents what we're dealing with. So we try to hide it from them. And then another thing is, like, sometimes parents do understand, but they feel like, okay, my mom's being too overbearing, so of course she's gonna blame me. It's gonna be my fault, So that's something that I feel like should be talked about more. But from my experiences, I would say I was blind, because I didn't know that I was getting groomed online at one point. I'm thinking I just made a friend. They're like, no, send a picture like this, send a picture like that. And like my mom said, she annually checks our devices. So one time she looked on my phone and she seen something, and I got my phone took. But, it was for better good. And my mom actually had this, it was an app where you controlled what I downloaded.
Yes. There's an app. There's an app that I found, and you can actually download it on your children's device, their cell phones, their tablets, their computers, and they cannot access any websites that you block on that app. And there's also, you can shut the app, the device down at a certain time. So let's say there's no more internet after 8 o'clock. The device shuts down, and there's no way that they can turn the device back on. But the problem is, a lot of young people are very smart, right?
Correct.
Okay, and she's laughing because there's a lot of people that's smart. So what these young people do is they find out how to jailbreak that app,
Correct.
and then they put the information on YouTube, and then the children know how to jailbreak it. So I always tell parents, try to have that, and you're right, have that open communication, that open line of communication. But I do have to say one thing, because I am a mental health professional. I have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. And one thing I always tell people, do not write off your children's emotions. If they start acting different, if they start, maybe they're showing frustration, don't say, oh, you know what, they're just being bad, or it's hormones. Start talking to that child, because if you see behaviors that are changing, try to identify what's going on with that child, because I always call everybody an onion, right?
Yes.
Everybody has layers. They're not acting like this for any reason. So really try to get to know that child and try to figure out, okay, why is this child being standoffish? Why are they showing signs of anxiety or depression? Why don't they want to go to school? Sometimes, parents are frustrated. I'm trying to get my child to go to school and they don't want to go. Well, maybe there's a reason. Always try to figure out that information.
I can't believe how fast this time has passed. I could talk to all of you for another half hour at least. Unfortunately, we're out of time. But that was actually a great place to end, I think, because it really all comes down to communication, awareness and communication. And back to what you said about us not growing up with it, and that when parents are afraid, they'll either clam up or they may come down too hard, which will make their children shut down. So we all need to breathe. We need to face our fears and have the conversations, because only with that open dialogue will the children feel safe enough to come to mom or dad and really understand what's going on in each other's lives. Thank you so much for this really rich conversation. Serenity, Brittany, Anne Sylvie, and Greg, you've been really amazing. Your expertise and your insights on this topic are outstanding. And thank you to our viewers for joining us. I've been your host, Cindy Aaron-Berg-Seltzer. For this or any other episode of Future First Focus on Broward's Children, go to our website, cscbroward.org, where you can access our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. Remember to join us next time on Future First, Focus on Broward's Children.
Don't forget about being a kid. Don't forget about paying it forward. Don't forget about love and purpose. Service is the mission, baby. Listen with love, listen with love, listen with love. Talk to your kids, ask them what's up. And listen up with love. Listen with love, listen with love, listen with love. Kick it with your kids, remember you were one. And listen up with love.